The wind howling through the cracks of the packhouse nursery sounded like a warning. For Arya, the world had always been a symphony of sounds and smells, never sights. Born with eyes the color of milk glass, she had never seen the moon, but she could feel its pull in her blood better than anyone. Today was her 18th birthday, the day of the mating run, the day everything was supposed to change. She sat on the edge of her narrow cot, her fingers tracing the rough wool of her dress. She smelled lavender and fear. The fear was her own. Arya! The door banged open. The heavy footsteps belonged to her stepmother Greta. Still sitting there, the Alpha is waiting in the great hall. Don't tell me you actually think he's going to pick you. Arya stood up, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. I am of age, Greta. If the moon goddess wills it. The moon goddess made a mistake with you, Greta sneered, her voice dripping with the resentment she had carried since Arya's father died. You are a blind omega, a burden. You can't hunt. You can't fight. You are useless. Arya lifted her chin. She might be blind, but she wasn't deaf to the cruelty of her pack. I can heal, she said softly. I know the herbs. I know the songs. Tricks, Greta spat. Now move. Alpha Ronin wants everyone present when he claims Lydia. Lydia. The name tasted like ash. Lydia was the beta female, strong, vicious, and beautiful, or so Arya had been told. She was everything an Alpha stood for. Strength, power, brutality. Arya was just soft. She navigated the hallways by memory, counting the steps. 19 steps to the landing, 12 to the main hall. As she entered the great hall, the noise hit her like a physical blow. The scent of hundreds of wolves, the heat of their bodies, the undercurrent of excitement. But cutting through it all was him, cedarwood, rain, and something dark, like storm clouds gathering. Alpha Ronin. His scent wrapped around Arya, making her knees weak. It was the scent of home, the scent of her mate. Her wolf whined inside her chest, scratching to get out. Mate, it whispered. Mate is here. Silence. Ronin's voice boomed. It was a deep baritone that vibrated in the floorboards beneath Arya's feet. The room went deathly quiet. Tonight, under the blood moon, I choose my mate. I choose the future of the Moonstone Pack. Arya's heart hammered against her ribs. He has to know, she thought desperately. He has to feel the bond. I feel it so strongly it hurts. She stepped forward, drawn by the invisible tether that connected them. She bumped into someone, Greta, who shoved her, but she kept moving. She stopped when the heat of him was directly in front of her. She could hear his breathing. She could smell the soap on his skin. Ronin, she whispered. The silence in the room stretched, heavy and suffocating. Arya, he said. His voice wasn't warm. It was cold, resigned. What are you doing? I feel it, she stammered, reaching out a hand, searching for him. The bond. You feel it too, don't you? The pull. Her fingers brushed his arm. Hard muscle, warm skin. A spark of electricity shot through her, undeniable proof. The crowd gasped, a blind Omega touching the Alpha without permission. Ronin didn't pull away immediately. For one agonizing heartbeat, Arya thought he might take her hand. She thought he might pull her into his arms and claim her. Instead, he laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. The bond, he mocked, loud enough for everyone to hear. You think the moon goddess would yoke me to you, to a wolf who cannot even see the enemy coming? He grabbed her wrist, not gently, and threw her hand back at her. I need a queen, Ronin declared, his voice rising. I need a warrior who can stand beside me in battle, not a burden I have to lead by the hand. He stepped past her. The movement of air chilled her skin. I reject you, Arya of the Moonstone Pack. The words physically hurt. It felt like a claw raking down the inside of her chest. Arya gasped, clutching her heart. The pain of rejection was legendary, but feeling it was like dying. Ronin, please, she sobbed, falling to her knees. Don't, it will kill me. I, Ronin Blackwood, Alpha of the Moonstone Pack, reject you as my mate. The bond snapped. It shattered. Arya screamed, a sound of pure agony that echoed off the stone walls. She curled into a ball on the floor, the world spinning into darkness. "Get her out of here," she heard Ronin say, his voice distant, muffled by the ringing in her ears. "She is ruining the ceremony." "I'll handle it, Alpha," Greta's voice. Then, rough hands grabbed Arya's arms, dragging her across the rough stone floor. "Lydia," Ronin called out, "my true choice." As Arya was dragged out the heavy oak doors, the last thing she heard was the pack cheering for their new Luna, while she was thrown into the snow like garbage. Chapter 2. The cold was absolute. Arya lay in the snow where the guards had dumped her, just outside the pack boundaries. Her dress was thin wool, useless against the biting wind of the northern wastes. She couldn't stop shaking. The rejection sickness was setting in. Fever burned under her skin while ice coated her exterior. He rejected me. The thought looped in her mind. He chose power over fate. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. She crawled, her hands sinking into the freezing powder, numbness spreading up her fingers. Well, a voice sneered from the darkness. "Look what the Alpha threw away." Arya froze. Rogue wolves. She could smell them, unwashed, metallic, dangerous. 3 of them. "Please," she whispered, "I have nothing." "You have warm flesh," the rogue laughed, "and we're hungry." A heavy boot kicked her in the ribs. Arya groaned, rolling onto her back. She couldn't see them, but she could hear their panting, the click of shifting bones. This is it, she thought. I'm going to die here, alone and rejected. She closed her blind eyes, waiting for the teeth, but they never came. A low, vibrating hum filled the air. It wasn't a growl, it was deeper, like the earth itself was singing. "Leave her," a voice commanded. It was a woman's voice, ancient and cracked like dry parchment. "She's not for you." "Get lost, hag," the rogue snarled. There was a sound like a whip cracking, sharp and loud, then a yelp of pain. The smell of ozone and burnt hair filled the air. I said, the woman's voice dropped, echoing with power, "Leave, or I will turn your bones to ash while you still breathe." The rogues scrambled. Arya heard their paws pounding against the snow as they fled in terror. Footsteps crunched in the snow, approaching Arya. A hand, dry and warm, touched her forehead. "Poor child," the woman murmured, "broken by a fool who thinks eyes are the only way to see." Who are you?" Arya chattered. "I am Ilara," the woman said. "Some call me a witch. Some call me a saint. I call myself a collector of broken things." Strong arms lifted Arya up. Not the arms of an old woman, but something stronger. "Magic? Sleep now, child. The wolf rejected you, but the wilds accept you." Arya felt a warm liquid press to her lips. She drank. It tasted of honey and fire. The pain in her chest dulled. The cold receded. She drifted into oblivion. Chapter 3. 5 years later. The clinic was hidden deep in the Whispering Woods, a place where pack wolves feared to tread. It was a simple cabin, but inside it was a sanctuary. The air always smelled of drying herbs, eucalyptus, and clean linen. Arya moved through the space with fluid grace. She didn't need eyes here. She knew exactly where the jar of valerian root sat, 3rd shelf left. She knew where the bandages were kept, bottom drawer. Over 5 years, Ilara had taught her everything. She taught her that blindness was not a weakness. It was a focus. Without sight, Arya's sense of smell had sharpened to a supernatural degree. She could smell infection in a wound before it showed red. She could smell a fever breaking. She could smell cancer, rot, and poison. She was no longer Arya, the rejected Omega. She was the Saint of the Wilds. She wore a mask now, always. A porcelain half-mask that covered her eyes and nose, leaving only her mouth visible. Ilara had insisted on it. "Mystery is protection," she had said before she passed away last winter. "Let them fear the mask, so they respect the woman." A chime sounded at the door. Arya stiffened. She smelled pine, old blood, and desperation. A wolf, a beta male. "Enter," she said, her voice cool and steady. The door opened. "I seek the saint," a gruff voice said. "You found her. Arya replied, turning to face the sound. She could hear his heart racing. You are injured? Not me, the beta said. My Alpha's son. He is sick. The pack healers can't do anything. Arya paused. Pack wolves rarely came here. They were too proud. What are his symptoms? Fever, delirium, and his veins are turning black. Arya frowned. Shadow rot. That is a magical ailment. A curse. Can you cure it? The beta asked, desperation leaking into his scent. I can, Arya said, but my price is high. We have gold, the man said quickly. We have supplies. I don't need gold, Arya said, walking to her table of herbs. I require a favor. A life debt. The beta hesitated. I cannot promise a life debt on behalf of my Alpha. Then bring your Alpha to me, Arya said dismissively. Or bring the boy, but I do not do house calls. We can't move the boy, the beta pleaded, and the Alpha is proud. He won't come to a witch. Then his son dies, Arya said simply. She picked up a pestle and began grinding roots, signaling the conversation was over. The beta stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. Then he cursed and left, slamming the door. Arya stopped grinding. Her hands shook. She recognized that beta. It was Silas, one of the men who had laughed when she was dragged out of the pack house 5 years ago, and the Alpha. Ronin. It had to be. Ronin had a son with another woman. The pain of it was a dull ache, an old scar stretching. He had forgotten her, replaced her, and now his legacy was dying. Good, a bitter part of her thought. Let him suffer. But she was a healer. Ilara had taught her that a healer does not judge the patient, only the wound. If they returned, she would have to decide. Was she a healer, or was she a woman scorned? Chapter 4. The storm came 3 days later, a blizzard that buried the woods in white silence. Arya sat by her fire, braiding dried sweetgrass. She knew they were coming. She had smelled them miles away. Not just one wolf this time. A convoy. The scent of power rolling off them like a tidal wave. Cedarwood, rain, and fear. Him. Arya's heart rate spiked. She forced herself to breathe. Calm, she ordered herself. You are not that scared little girl anymore. She adjusted her mask, making sure it covered the milky whiteness of her eyes. She pulled her hood up. She sat in the high-backed chair facing the door, her hands folded in her lap, waiting. The door didn't just open, it was kicked in. Wind and snow swirled into the warm cabin. A massive figure filled the doorway. Even without seeing him, the sheer weight of his presence pressed against her skin. Alpha. Where is she? Ronin roared. His voice was deeper than she remembered, rougher. Where is the witch? Arya didn't flinch. You are letting the heat out, she said calmly. Close the door or leave. Ronin stepped inside, kicking the door shut behind him. He marched toward her, his heavy boots shaking the floorboards. He smelled of exhaustion, coffee, and terror. My son, he growled, looming over her. He is fading. You will come with me, now. I told your beta, Arya said, her voice unrecognizable even to herself, low, distorted by the mask. I do not do house calls. I am not asking. Ronin slammed his hand down on the table beside her, cracking the wood. I am Alpha Ronin Blackwood, and if you do not come, I will burn this cabin down around your ears. Arya tilted her head. Threats? Is this how the great Alpha asks for help? She stood up slowly. She was small compared to him, but she held herself with a stillness that unnerved him. She could smell his confusion. He expected her to cower. You rejected the help of magic once, did you not? She asked, guessing. You prefer strength. Why come to a weak witch now? Because I have no choice. Ronin's voice broke. The arrogance cracked, revealing the terrified father beneath. He is 5 years old. He is all I have. All you have? Arya paused. What of his mother? She is dead, Ronin said flatly. Died in childbirth. The boy, Liam, he is the only thing left of her. Arya felt a shock. Lydia was dead? The strong, perfect Luna hadn't survived? Please, Ronin whispered. He dropped to his knees. The sound of his knees hitting the floor echoed in the silence. The Alpha King, kneeling before the girl he threw away. Take my life if you want, but save him. Arya looked down at the blur of his heat signature. This was her moment. She could destroy him. She could refuse. But the child was innocent. Get up, she said. I will come, but my price has changed. Chapter 5. Name it, Ronin said without hesitation. He was still kneeling, his head bowed. Half my territory, my personal fortune, anything. I don't want your money, Alpha, Arya said, her voice cool behind the porcelain mask. And I don't want your land. She stepped closer, the hem of her heavy cloak brushing his knee. If I save your son, you will grant me a boon. One favor of my choosing, at a time of my choosing. And you cannot refuse it, no matter what it is. Ronin looked up. His amber eyes searched the blank white surface of her mask, looking for a trick. A blank check favor from an Alpha King was dangerous. It could destroy a pack. But he didn't blink. Agreed, he growled. On my blood and my wolf. Save Liam, and I am yours to command. Then let us go, Arya said. She grabbed her satchel of herbs, the one she had packed days ago when she first sensed the sickness on the wind. She didn't need to see to know the way to the door. She felt the draft. She moved with a fluid, eerie grace that made Ronin frown as he rose to follow her. The drive back to the pack house was suffocating. Arya sat in the back of the armored SUV, separated from Ronin by a leather armrest, but she could feel his heat. He smelled of distress, a sharp, acrid scent that spiked every time the car hit a bump. You are staring, Arya said softly, keeping her face turned toward the window, though she saw nothing but darkness. I'm trying to figure you out, Ronin admitted, his voice rough. You move like a ghost. You speak like an ancient, but your scent... Arya stiffened. She had bathed in sage and blockers, but the mate bond was a powerful thing. What about my scent? It's buried, he murmured, leaning closer. Underneath the herbs. It smells familiar, like a memory I can't quite place. We have never met, she lied, her heart hammering against her ribs. I am a recluse. I do not mix with wolves. Perhaps, Ronin said, leaning back. But the suspicion didn't leave his scent. He was an alpha. He trusted his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that he knew her. The car slowed. Gravel crunched beneath the tires. Arya didn't need eyes to know where they were. The heavy iron gates, the long, winding driveway lined with ancient oaks, the Moonstone packhouse, her prison, her home. As the car door opened, the cold night air hit her, carrying the sense of her childhood. Wood smoke, wet fur, and cruelty. We're here, Ronin said, offering her a hand. Arya ignored it, stepping out onto the snow unaided. She tilted her head, listening to the echoes of the massive stone house. Where is the boy? She asked. The Alpha Suite, Ronin said. Top floor. Lead the way. She followed him, her cane tapping softly against the marble stairs. Every step was a battle against memory. Here is where I tripped and spilled the soup. Here is where Greta locked me in the closet for 2 days. They reached the landing. A woman stood there, arms crossed, blocking the hallway. Greta. Arya recognized her stepmother's screechy, high-pitched breathing instantly. What is this? Greta demanded, her voice shrill. Ronin, you brought a witch into our home? Move, Greta. Ronin snarled, not breaking stride. She is here to save Liam. She's a charlatan, Greta shrieked, grabbing Ronin's arm. Look at her, hiding her face like a criminal, probably some rogue you picked up in the gutter. We don't need magic, we need a real doctor. Arya stopped. She turned her masked face toward Greta. She couldn't see the woman, but she could smell the fear in the cheap perfume she always wore to mask the scent of gin. And what have you done for the boy, Greta? Arya asked, her voice low and distorted. Besides watch him wither? Greta gasped. How dare you speak to me? I am the grandmother of the future Alpha. You are an obstruction. Arya cut her off. She didn't raise her voice, but the power in it made the windows rattle. Step aside, or I will turn your tongue to ash in your mouth. It was a bluff, mostly, but Greta didn't know that. She scrambled back, pressing herself against the wall. Ronin looked at Arya, impressed. "This way," he said, opening the door to the suite. Chapter 6. The smell of sickness in the room was overwhelming. It smelled like rotting fruit and stagnant water. Shadow rot. It was advanced. Arya moved to the bed. She could hear the shallow, rattling breaths of the child. "Liam," Ronin whispered, his voice breaking. "Daddy's here. I brought help." Arya reached out, her hands hovering over the small body. He was burning up. His skin felt like paper, dry and fragile. She touched his chest, and a jolt of dark energy snapped at her fingers. "It is deep," she said, pulling back. "The curse has wrapped around his heart. It is feeding on his life force." "Can you stop it?" Ronin asked. He sounded terrified. The mighty Alpha, reduced to a begging father. "I can," Arya said, "but it will be dangerous. I need absolute silence. I need herbs, boiling water, and silver bowls. And I need everyone out." "I'm not leaving him," Ronin said instantly. "You must," Arya insisted. "The wolf energy conflicts with the healing spell. Your presence feeds the rot's aggression." It was a half-truth. She needed him gone because she needed to take off her gloves to work properly, and her hands. Her hands had distinctive birthmarks, small star-shaped freckles on her wrists that he might remember. "Please," she added, "if you want him to live." Ronin hesitated. He looked at his son, then at the masked woman. "Save him," he choked out. "Just save him." He turned and walked out, closing the door. Arya let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She locked the door. She moved to the bed and sat down. She removed her gloves. She didn't remove the mask. She never removed the mask. She placed her hands on Liam's chest. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm going to take the pain away." She began to chant. It wasn't a spell from a book. It was a song. The same song she used to hum to herself when she was locked in the cellar. A song of light and endurance. As she sang, she envisioned the rod as black vines, and her magic as golden shears. She cut, she pulled, she soothed. Hours passed. The room grew hot. Sweat ran down her back. The rot fought back, biting at her magic, draining her energy. Arya gasped, her head spinning. She was weak. She hadn't eaten properly in days. "I can't do it," she thought, panic rising. "It's too strong." But then Liam's hand moved. His tiny, fever-hot fingers curled around her wrist. He squeezed, a weak, desperate hold on life. And suddenly, Arya wasn't just a healer. She was a woman protecting her pack. "No," she growled. "You do not take him." She poured everything she had into the spell. Her own life force, her memories, her love. The golden light flared, blindingly bright even to her sightless eyes. The rot shrieked, a high psychic sound, and dissolved. Arya slumped forward, her forehead resting on the mattress. Silence returned to the room. But this time, it was peaceful. The rattling breath was gone, replaced by the deep rhythmic sleep of a healing child. She had done it. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. She collapsed into the chair beside the bed, darkness tugging at the edges of her mind. "Just a moment," she thought. "I'll just rest my eyes for a moment." Chapter 7. When Ronin burst into the room hours later, the sun was rising. He had heard the silence and feared the worst. "Liam," he shouted, but the boy was sleeping, his skin pink and healthy, the black veins gone. Ronin collapsed against the doorframe, a sob tearing from his throat. He rushed to the bed, checking the pulse, checking the breath. It was a miracle. He turned to thank the saint, and froze. She was asleep in the armchair. Her head had lolled back, exposing the line of her throat. One of her gloves had fallen off, revealing her hand resting on the armrest. It was a delicate hand, pale and slender, and on the inside of her wrist. Ronin stepped closer, his heart pounding a new, erratic rhythm. He stared at the wrist. A constellation of freckles, 3 small dots in a perfect triangle. He knew that hand. He had held that hand once, 5 years ago, when a blind girl had begged him not to reject her. "Arya?" he whispered. The name felt like a ghost in his mouth. He reached out, his fingers hovering over the porcelain mask. He needed to know. He needed to see her face. If this was her, if the woman who saved his son was the mate he had cast out. No, he told himself. Arya is dead. Greta told me she died in the wastes a week after the exile. But the scent, now that the smell of sickness was gone, the room smelled of herbs and rain. Vanilla. His hand trembled. He hooked a finger under the edge of the mask. Don't, a voice said. Ronin snatched his hand back. Arya was awake. She didn't move, didn't open her eyes behind the mask. She just sat there, stillness radiating from her. You promised, she said, her voice raspy with exhaustion. You promised not to ask, not to look. Who are you? Ronin demanded, his voice shaking. Those marks on your wrist. I knew someone. Many people have freckles, Alpha, she said coldly, pulling her hand back and sliding the glove on. Do not mistake coincidence for fate. She stood up, though she swayed slightly. Your son is healed. My work is done. You're weak, Ronin observed, stepping into her path. You can barely stand. I am fine. I need to leave. No. The word was out before he could stop it. You can't leave. Not yet. I have fulfilled my part of the bargain, Arya said, her chin lifting. Do you intend to break your word? I owe you a boon, Ronin reminded her. And I owe you gratitude. Stay, just for a few days, until you recover, until I can be sure the rot won't return. It was an excuse. He knew it. She knew it. He just couldn't let her go. Not with that question burning in his gut. Not when his wolf was pacing inside him, whining, mate, mate. Arya hesitated. She was drained. The walk back to her cabin would take hours, and another storm was brewing. And she wanted to stay. God help her. She wanted to be near him, even if he didn't know who she was. 2 days, she conceded. I will stay 2 days to monitor the boy, then I go. Thank you, Ronin breathed. I'll have a room prepared next to the nursery. No, Arya said. I will stay in the nursery, with him. She nodded toward Liam. I don't trust your household, Alpha. Someone poisoned him, someone inside these walls. Ronin's face hardened. You think there is a traitor? Shadow rot requires sustained contact, Arya explained. Someone has been feeding it to him, or placing it near him. A toy, a blanket. Ronin looked at his sleeping son, fury igniting in his eyes. Find it, he ordered. Find the source, and I will kill whoever did this. I will find it, Arya promised, but I do it my way. No guards in the room, no interruptions, and especially no Greta. Ronin frowned. Greta? She dotes on him. She's practically raised him since Lydia died. She is loud, Arya said dismissively, and her energy is sour. Keep her away. Chapter 8. That night, the nursery was quiet. Arya sat in the rocking chair, listening to the house settle. She wasn't just resting. She was hunting. She extended her senses, smelling every inch of the room. The bedding, clean. The food, fresh. The toys. She moved to the toy chest. It smelled of wood and paint. Normal. She moved to the closet, clothes, shoes, and then a faint bitter scent, like almonds. She knelt, feeling around the floor of the closet. Her fingers brushed against a loose floorboard. She pried it up. Underneath, wrapped in a black cloth, was a small sachet of dried herbs and bones. A hex bag. Found you, she whispered. The door handle turned. Arya spun around, sliding the hex bag into her pocket. The door opened a crack. It wasn't Ronin. The footsteps were too light. A figure slipped into the room. Arya stayed perfectly still in the shadows of the corner. The figure moved to the crib. It was a woman. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a pillow. Arya's blood ran cold. She wasn't just checking on him. She was going to smother him. The woman leaned over the crib. I'm sorry, little prince, a voice whispered. Greta, but your father is too distracted. He needs a tragedy to make him focus, to make him see that I am the only one who can help him. She began to lower the pillow. Arya moved. She didn't use magic this time. She used the element of surprise. She launched herself from the chair, tackling Greta from behind. They crashed to the floor. The pillow flew across the room. "Get off me!" Greta shrieked, clawing at Arya's mask. "You filthy witch!" Arya pinned her down, her forearm pressing against Greta's throat. "Scream!" Arya hissed. "Scream and wake the Alpha. Let him see what his beloved mother-in-law is doing." Greta froze. She realized her mistake. If Ronin came in now... You won't tell him," Greta gasped. "I'll give you money. I'll give you jewels." "I don't want your money," Arya snarled. "I want you to leave this boy alone." Suddenly, the door banged open. Light flooded the room from the hallway. "What is going on?" Ronin stood there, silhouette massive. He flicked the light switch. He saw the Saint of the Wilds straddling his mother-in-law, a hand raised to strike. "She attacked me," Greta screamed, putting on her best victim performance. "I came to check on Liam and this monster jumped me. She tried to kill me, Ronin, save me." Ronin looked at Arya. "Get off her," he commanded, his voice low and dangerous. Arya hesitated. If she got off, Greta would spin the lie. If she stayed, Ronin might attack her. Slowly, she stood up, smoothing her robes. Greta scrambled up, rushing to Ronin's side, clutching his arm. "Arrest her. Throw her in the dungeon. She's dangerous." Ronin looked at Arya. His eyes were hard. "Explain." "Ask her what she was doing with the pillow," Arya said calmly, pointing to the pillow lying on the floor by the crib. I was fluffing it," Greta stammered, "for the boy." "And this?" Arya pulled the hex bag from her pocket and tossed it onto the floor between them. The smell of rot filled the room instantly. Ronin recoiled, covering his nose. His eyes flashed to Greta. "That's scent. That's the sickness." Greta went pale. "She planted it. The witch put it there." Ronin looked between the two women, the woman who had raised him after his mate died, and the stranger who smelled like rain. He stepped toward the hex bag. He sniffed it. Then he sniffed Greta. He growled. "It's on you," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "The scent of the rot. It's on your hands, Greta." Greta took a step back. "Ronin, no, I was just cleaning." "You poisoned my son," Ronin roared. The sound woke Liam, who started to cry. "Guards," Ronin bellowed. 2 warriors appeared instantly. "Take her to the cells, and if she speaks, gag her." As they dragged a screaming Greta away, Ronin turned to Arya. He looked devastated, broken. "You saved him again," he whispered. "And I almost attacked you." He walked toward her. He looked at her with such intensity that Arya felt her knees weaken. "Who are you?" he asked, reaching for her mask again. "Why do you protect us?" Arya backed away until she hit the wall. She was trapped, and Ronin was close. Too close. "Because," she whispered, her resolve crumbling, "because no child deserves to be rejected." Ronin froze. Those words. He remembered saying them. "I reject you." The memory hung between them. "Arya," he said again, and this time he didn't ask. He reached out and ripped the mask from her face. The porcelain shattered on the floor. Arya stood revealed, her milky blind eyes staring unseeing at his chest. Her face older, scarred, but unmistakably her. The girl he threw away. The mate he denied. "Oh God," Ronin breathed, falling to his knees. "What have I done?" Chapter 9. The silence in the nursery was heavier than the stone walls surrounding them. Arya stood frozen, the cool air of the room hitting her exposed face. She felt naked without the mask, exposed. The scars on her cheek, remnants of the frostbite from that first night in the waste, burned under his gaze. "Arya," Ronin whispered again. He reached out a hand, his fingers trembling, as if to touch her cheek. Arya flinched back. The movement was sharp, violent. "Do not touch me," she hissed. "You lost that right 5 years ago when you threw me in the snow." Ronin recoiled as if she had slapped him. He stayed on his knees, looking up at her with eyes full of ruin. "I thought you were dead," he choked out. Every day for 5 years, I lived with the ghost of you. I smelled you in the rain. I heard you in the wind." And whose fault is that? Arya asked, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. You rejected me, Ronin. You didn't just break the bond. You broke me. You told me I was useless, a burden. She gestured to the sleeping boy in the crib. And yet, here I am, saving your legacy, cleaning up your mess. I was a fool, Ronin admitted, his voice raw. I was young, arrogant. I thought strength meant muscle and claws. I didn't know. He looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't know that true strength was surviving when the whole world wants you dead. Your apologies change nothing, Arya said, turning away. She fumbled for her cloak, pulling the hood up to hide her face. I upheld my end of the bargain. Your son is safe. The traitor is caught. I am leaving. No! Ronin scrambled to his feet, blocking the door. He didn't touch her, but his large frame filled the exit. You can't leave. Not now. Not when I just found you. You didn't find me, Arya corrected him coldly. I came to you out of pity. Now move. I owe you a boon, Ronin said desperately. You said if you saved him, I would grant you a favor. Anything. Arya paused. Yes, and my favor is this. Let me go, and never seek me out again. The color drained from Ronin's face. The rejection of the boon was worse than a physical blow. It was a severance. Arya, please, he begged. Give me a chance. Just let me explain. Let me show you that I am not the boy who hurt you. Why? She asked, tired. So you can reject me again when a stronger wolf comes along? When you need a real queen? You are my queen, Ronin roared, the Alpha command slipping out. He flinched, reeling it back in. You always were. Even when I married Lydia, I never marked her. Arya went still. What? I never completed the bond with Lydia, Ronin confessed, his voice dropping to a whisper. I couldn't. Every time I tried, I felt you. I felt the snap of our bond, the pain I caused you. I couldn't replace it. Lydia was a political match, a partnership, but she was never my mate, and she knew it. That's why she was so bitter. That's why she let Greta run this house. He stepped closer. I have been alone, Arya. Truly alone, waiting for a ghost. Arya felt a crack in her armor. He hadn't marked Lydia. He had remained unbonded. Her wolf whined deep in her chest, wanting to comfort him. No, she told herself sternly. He is dangerous. He broke us. I cannot stay here, Ronin, she said softly. This house, it has too many ghosts for me, too. Then we will go somewhere else, he said instantly. I have a cabin by the lake, or we can build a new house, anywhere. Just don't disappear into the woods again. It's not safe. I am the saint of the wilds, she reminded him. The woods are safer for me than your castle ever was. Boom! A deep, reverberating explosion shook the floorboards beneath their feet. Dust rained from the ceiling. Liam woke up screaming. Chapter 10. What was that? Arya gasped, instinctively moving to cover the crib with her body. Ronin's face transformed instantly. The grieving lover vanished. The Alpha King appeared. He sniffed the air. Smoke, he growled. Magic. And wolves. He ran to the window. The gate, he snarled. It's gone, blown off its hinges. He turned to Arya. Greta wasn't working alone. She was the inside man. But the army is outside. Who? Arya asked, picking up the crying Liam. The Rogue Coalition, Ronin said, grabbing a sword from the wall mount. Exiles, criminals, wolves who hate the pack laws. They've been gathering in the north. I thought they were disorganized scavengers. I was wrong. He looked at her. They're here for the pack, and they're here for you. Me? The saint, Ronin said. Rumors of a healer who can cure the rot? They want you. Either to use you or to kill you so no one else can be saved. Stay here, he ordered. Bar the door. Do not open it for anyone but me. No, Arya said firmly. I am not hiding in a closet while you fight. Arya, you are blind. You cannot fight an army. I don't need eyes to fight, she snapped. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a handful of glass vials. I have these, and I have the wind. She strapped Liam into a carrier on her chest, securing him tight. The boy stays with me. If they breach the house, the nursery is a trap. We need to get to the cellar. Ronin hesitated, then nodded. He recognized the steel in her voice. She wasn't asking for permission. Fine. Stick to my back. We move as one. He kicked the door open. The hallway was already filling with smoke. Chaos erupted downstairs. Screams, the clash of steel, the howls of wolves shifting. They moved toward the stairs. A rogue wolf, massive and gray, leaped up the landing, jaws snapping. Ronin didn't break stride. He swung the sword, a silver arc in the smoke, and took the wolf's head off in one clean stroke. Keep moving, he barked. Arya stepped over the body without flinching. She smelled another one coming from the left. Sulfur and unwashed fur. Left, she shouted. Ronin spun, trusting her instantly. He drove his sword into the shadow just as a wolf lunged. How did you know? He panted, pulling the blade free. He smelled like onions, she said dryly. Downstairs, now. They fought their way to the ground floor. The great hall was a battlefield. Tables overturned, curtains burning. Ronin's pack warriors were holding the line, but they were outnumbered. Alpha, Thomas shouted, his arm bleeding. There's too many of them. They're using magic. A bolt of green fire shot across the room, striking a warrior. He screamed as his skin began to boil. Witches, Arya hissed. Rogue witches. That explains the shadow rot. She scanned the room with her ears and nose. She smelled ozone crackling in the corner near the fireplace. There, she pointed. The caster is behind the hearth. Ronin couldn't see anyone, but he didn't question her. He picked up a heavy iron shield. Cover me, he roared to his men. He charged the fireplace. A woman stepped out from the shadows, her hands glowing green. She threw a fireball. Ronin raised the shield. The fire washed over it, heating the metal red hot, but he kept moving. He slammed the shield into the witch, knocking her into the wall. The magic cut off instantly. Retreat to the cellar, Ronin bellowed. Get the women and children downstairs. We hold the bottleneck. The pack obeyed, retreating in a disciplined wave. Arya followed them, her hand on Ronin's back. They reached the heavy cellar doors. Once everyone was inside, Ronin and Thomas slammed the doors shut and barred them with heavy oak beams. The sounds of the battle above were muffled, distant thuds. The cellar was packed with terrified families, the air thick with the scent of fear. Chapter 11. Is everyone okay? Ronin asked, scanning the dim room. We have wounded, Thomas said grimly. 7 warriors, bites, burns. Ronin looked at Arya. He didn't order her. He looked at her with pleading eyes. I'm on it, she said. She handed the sleeping Liam to a young girl. Watch him, don't let him wake up. She moved among the wounded. She didn't have enough supplies, but she had her gift. She knelt beside a warrior with a deep gash in his leg. Hold him down, she instructed 2 others. She placed her hands on the wound. She hummed the song. The golden light spilled from her palms, illuminating the dark cellar. The pack watched in awed silence. They had called her a runt, a curse. Now she was their only hope. Ronin watched her from the door. His heart swelled with a mixture of pride and agony. Look at her, his wolf howled. She is magnificent. And we threw her away. He walked over to her as she finished healing the last warrior. She was pale, swaying on her feet. You're draining yourself, he whispered, catching her elbow to steady her. I'm fine, she murmured. I have to be. You don't have to be anything but alive, he said fiercely. Rest. I'll take the first watch. He sat down against the wall, pulling her down with him. She didn't resist this time. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, and for the first time in 5 years, the circuit was complete. The bond hummed, a low, steady vibration that promised safety. Why are they doing this? Arya whispered into his shirt. Greta, Ronin said, his voice cold. I interrogated her before the attack. She made a deal with the rogues. She promised them the pack lands if they killed me and Liam. She wanted to be the puppet master behind a new Alpha. All that hate, Arya mused. Because I was blind? Because I was different. Because she was empty, Ronin said. And you You were full of light. Even in the dark, you shone. It made her feel small. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. I was blind too, Arya. I saw a girl who couldn't see, and I assumed she couldn't lead. But tonight, you saw things I couldn't. You heard things I missed. You're more alpha than I am. Arya squeezed his hand. I'm not an Alpha Ronin. I'm just a survivor. Then teach me, he whispered. Teach me how to survive this, because I don't know how to fix what I broke between us. Start by surviving the night, she said, her eyes drifting shut. We can talk about the rest if we see the sun. She fell asleep against him. Ronin didn't sleep. He watched the door. He listened to her breathing, and he vowed to the moon goddess that if they got out of this, he would spend the rest of his life crawling over broken glass if that's what it took to make her smile. Chapter 12. Morning didn't bring sunlight. It brought smoke. The cellar doors shook as something heavy slammed against them from the outside. They're trying to break in, Thomas said, drawing his sword. We can't hold them forever. We don't have to, Ronin said, standing up. We just need to break their leadership. He looked at Arya. The witch. If we take her out, the rogues lose their advantage. They're cowardly. Without magic protecting them, they'll scatter. I can stop her, Arya said, standing up, but I need to get close. Absolutely not, Ronin growled. I am not using you as bait. I'm not bait, she said calmly. I'm the trap. She uses nature magic, twisted, but I am the wilds. My magic is older, purer. It's too dangerous. Ronin, she said, using his name like a weapon. Trust me, or are we back to you thinking I'm a burden? The words hit their mark. Ronin clenched his jaw. Fine, but I'm right beside you. They formulated a plan. Thomas and the warriors would create a distraction at the main doors. Ronin and Arya would slip out the coal chute in the back, circling around to flank the witch. They moved through the narrow tunnel, emerging into the cold morning air behind the kitchen gardens. The house was a smoking ruin, but the stone walls held. In the center of the courtyard, the rogue Alpha, a scarred brute named Korg, was shouting orders. Beside him stood the witch. Now, Ronin whispered. He shifted. The transformation was smooth, practiced. A massive black wolf with silver markings stood beside her. He nudged her hand with his wet nose. I am with you, the gesture said. Arya closed her eyes. She reached out with her senses. She felt the witch's magic, a oily black stain on the air. It felt like sickness. Arya reached deeper, past the rot, down into the frozen earth beneath the snow. She felt the roots of the ancient trees, the sleeping seeds, the life waiting to spring. Hey, she shouted, stepping out from behind the wall. The witch spun around. The saint, she hissed, her eyes glowing green. I've been waiting for you. She threw a ball of fire. It roared toward Arya, hot enough to melt stone. Arya didn't move. She raised her hand. Shield. The earth exploded upward. A wall of dirt and roots shot up from the ground, intercepting the fireball. The impact shook the ground. Dust filled the air. While the witch was distracted, Ronin launched. A black blur of fury. He hit the rogue Alpha, Korg, taking him down in a tangle of teeth and fur. The witch screamed, turning her magic on Ronin. No! Arya yelled. She thrust her hands forward. She didn't throw fire. She threw silence. A vacuum of air. A void of sound and magic. It hit the witch, wrapping around her head. The witch opened her mouth to chant, but no sound came out. Her green fire sputtered and died. Without her words, she was powerless. Arya walked toward her, her footsteps steady. You pervert the natural order, Arya said, her voice echoing in the witch's mind. You use the earth to kill. The earth rejects you. Vines burst from the snow, dormant winter creepers that Arya woke from their slumber. They wrapped around the witch's ankles, her wrists, her throat. They pulled her down, pinning her to the frozen ground. The witch struggled, eyes wide with terror, but she couldn't speak. She couldn't cast. She was helpless. Across the yard, Ronin finished it. He tore out Korg's throat with a savage shake of his head. The rogue Alpha went limp. Ronin stood over the body, blood dripping from his muzzle, and let out a howl of victory. The remaining rogues, seeing their leader dead and their witch captured, broke. They turned and ran, fleeing into the woods, tails tucked between their legs. The pack warriors cheered, pouring out of the cellar to chase them down. But Ronin didn't chase. He shifted back to human form, ignoring his nudity, ignoring the cold. He walked straight to Arya. She released the vines, letting the guards take the witch away. She turned to him. She was shaking, her energy spent. Ronin caught her before she fell. He pulled her into his chest, burying his face in her hair. "You did it," he breathed against her ear. "You saved us all." "We did it," she whispered, leaning against him. "We did it together." He pulled back, looking down at her scarred face, her blind eyes. "I love you," he said. "I love you, Arya. Please, let me spend the rest of my life making up for the first 18 years. Arya touched his face. She felt the tears on his cheeks. "You have a lot of work to do, Alpha," she said, a small smile touching her lips. "But I suppose I can supervise." Chapter 13. The smoke cleared slowly from the courtyard. The silence that followed the battle was heavy, broken only by the crunch of snow as the pack warriors emerged from the cellar. They looked at the carnage, the dead rogues, the captured witch bound in living vines, and then they looked at Arya. She stood in the center of the ruin, her red dress torn, her hair wild, her hand resting on the flank of their Alpha. She looked small, fragile, but the vines pulsing with green magic at her feet told a different story. Thomas, the beta, was the first to approach. He limped, clutching his side, but he stopped in front of Arya and dropped to one knee. He didn't say a word. He simply lowered his head, exposing his neck in a gesture of absolute submission. Then another warrior knelt, then a mother holding her child, then another. Within moments, the entire Moonstone pack was kneeling in the snow, not to Ronin, to her, to the runt they had scorned, to the blind girl they had cast out. Arya gripped Ronin's arm tighter. "What are they doing?" she whispered, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in the air, the scent of respect replacing the scent of disdain. "They are apologizing," Ronin murmured near her ear, "and they are pledging fealty. You saved them, Arya. You are their Luna now, truly." Arya felt tears prick her eyes. For 18 years, she had wanted this. Acceptance, belonging. But now that she had it, she realized she didn't need their validation. She had found her own worth in the woods, but she accepted it for Ronin's sake. "Rise," she said, her voice carrying clear and steady. "We have work to do. We have wounded to heal. And we have a home to rebuild." Chapter 14. The rebuilding took months, but this time, the atmosphere in the pack house was different. There were no hushed whispers when Arya walked down the hall. There was no tripping her, no cruel pranks. Instead, there was the tapping of her cane and the respectful silence of wolves moving out of her way. Ronin had installed guide rails in the hallways. He had ordered texture strips placed on the floor thresholds, so she would know which room was which. He didn't try to fix her eyes. He fixed the world around her. One evening, Arya sat in the nursery. Liam was awake, playing with a wooden wolf toy on the rug. He was fully recovered, his laughter bright and loud. "Arya," his small voice piped up. "Yes, Liam?" "Are you going to be my mommy now?" The question hung in the air, sweet and heavy. Arya put down her knitting. She reached out, finding his small shoulder, and pulled him into her lap. "Do you want me to be?" "Yes," Liam said seriously. Greta was mean. She smelled like old flowers and secrets. "You smell like rain. I like rain." Arya laughed, a wet, choking sound. "Then yes, Liam, I will be your mommy, for as long as you want me." Ronin watched from the doorway, his heart swelling until he thought it might burst. He had lost so much. He had made so many mistakes. But seeing his mate and his son together, bathed in the golden light of the fireplace, he knew he had been given a second chance he didn't deserve. He walked in, kneeling beside the chair. He wrapped his massive arms around both of them, burying his face in Arya's neck. "I love you," he whispered, "both of you." "We know," Arya said, resting her cheek on his head. We know. Chapter 15. Do I have to wear the shoes? Arya complained. I hate heels. I can't feel the ground properly. You look beautiful, Mrs. Wilson said, fussing with the hem of the silk wedding gown. And the heels are low. Ronin insisted on practicality. It was a year to the day since Arya had returned. A year since the battle. Today they were making it official. Not just a mating bond, but a human wedding, followed by a pack ceremony. A statement to the world that the Moonstone Pack was whole again. Ready? Thomas asked from the doorway. He was the one walking her down the aisle, a peace offering from the man who had once driven her into the snow. Ready, Arya said. She took his arm. The ceremony was held in the garden she had planted. The scent of blooming jasmine and roses filled the air, mingling with the fresh pine of the forest. As she walked down the aisle, she didn't need eyes to see the love directed at her. She could feel it, a warm, humming vibration from the hundreds of guests. And at the end of the aisle, him, Ronin. His scent was a beacon, guiding her home. When she reached him, he took her hands. His palms were sweating. The big bad Alpha was nervous. You're shaking, she whispered, amused. I'm terrified, he admitted, his voice rough. Terrified I'm going to wake up and find you gone, that I'm back in that dark room without you. I'm not going anywhere, she promised. They exchanged vows, not the traditional pack vows of obedience and strength. New vows, vows of partnership, of listening, of seeing the other person for who they truly were. I, Ronin, take you, Arya, to be my eyes when I am blind to the truth, he said, his voice cracking, to be my conscience when I am lost in anger, to be my heart. And I, Arya, take you, Ronin, to be my strength when I am weary, she replied, to be my shield, to be my home. When he kissed her, the pack howled, a joyous, deafening sound that rose to the moon. It wasn't a howl of war or dominance. It was a song of celebration. The king had found his queen, and the queen had found her peace. Epilogue, 5 years later. The winter had been harsh, but the cabin in the woods, now a retreat for the Alpha family, was warm. Arya sat by the window, listening to the silence of the falling snow. She looked different now. Motherhood had softened her edges, but the power still hummed beneath her skin. She was the most respected healer in the territory. Alphas from 3 neighboring packs sent their children to her for training in herb lore. Mama! A door slammed. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Liam, now 10 years old and already showing the height of his father, burst into the room. Mama, look, feel. He shoved something cold and wet into her hand. A snowball? Arya laughed, wiping the melting ice from her palm. Not just a snowball. I hit Dad with it, right in the face. A roar of playful rage came from the hallway. You little traitor, I'll get you for that. Ronin charged into the room, covered in snow, his hair wild. He grabbed Liam, tickling him until the boy shrieked with laughter. Arya listened, a smile playing on her lips. The sound of their joy was the most beautiful thing she had ever heard. But then, a softer sound came from the cradle in the corner. A coo. A gurgle. Arya stood up and walked to the bassinet. Inside lay their daughter, Ilara, named after the woman who had saved Arya's life. The baby reached up, her tiny fingers grasping Arya's thumb. She's awake, Ronin said, coming up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder, looking down at their daughter. What color are her eyes? Arya asked softly. It was the one question she always asked, the one thing she couldn't know. Ronin paused. They are blue, he said, like the winter sky. No gold? No gold, he confirmed. She is human, Arya, like you were born to be. Arya let out a breath. A human child. A child who wouldn't have to fight for dominance, who wouldn't be judged by the strength of her wolf. Are you disappointed? She asked, a ghost of her old insecurity rising. Ronin turned her in his arms. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then her eyelids. Disappointed? Arya, look at what we have. We have a wolf son who is gentle. We have a human daughter who will be loved. We have a pack that values wisdom over violence. He pressed her hand to his chest, right over his beating heart. I don't care if she has a wolf, a bear, or a hamster in her soul. She is ours, and she is perfect. Arya leaned into him, closing her eyes. She inhaled his scent, cedar, rain, and love. Yes, she whispered. She is. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white, but inside the fire burned bright, and the shadows that had once haunted the Moonstone Pack were gone forever. Arya Harrington, the blind girl, the runt, the reject, had done what no alpha before her could do. She had taught them to see. They say that love is blind. But in the case of Arya and Ronin, it was blindness that taught them how to love. It taught Ronin that power without compassion is just brutality. And it taught Arya that being broken is just another way of being open to the light. They lived a long life, a happy life. And when they finally passed, legend says that 2 trees grew over their graves. An oak, strong and tall, and a willow, bending but never breaking. And if you listen closely when the wind blows through the whispering woods, you can still hear them. A deep rumble of laughter, and a soft, humming song, reminding the world that even in the darkest winter, spring will always come. Thank you so much for listening to this story. This was a long one, a true journey, and I'm so glad you stuck with us to the end. If Arya's story touched your heart, please leave a wolf emoji in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a romance. I'm Ammy Sterling, and I'll see you in the next story. Bye for now.